Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 202 for your playbooks. My name is Aaron with the raspy voice. Please pardon me. I'm dealing with a sinus infection. Hopefully, I don't cough into the microphone this whole way. And the other two who are healthy as this, young virile men that they are, Dave and Fredo, the other members of the Who Dat Jedi Council. How are we doing, guys?
Feeling good.
Feeling not as bad, but not as good. I'm recuperating just like you are.
Yeah.
I didn't get it as bad as you did, but I'm nuking my own bug.
So anyway, I know where this all came from too. When Brittany and I were on vacation, we're in the Azores, and we're on a walking tour, a food walk. It was like a historical tour of Ponta Delgada, and food was the catalyst for this. So it's like you went and had some breakfast, then you went and had some, went to the farmer's market, then you went and had some lunch, and anyway, there were a couple people on that just kept coughing the whole time. And I think I even said it to Britt out loud. I said, when I get COVID, this is how it happened. It's like I can just point to them. It was a similar thing happened. We went to Ireland one time. I came home and ended up having like sinus infection or just major crud. And I remember back to the session that was like halfway through that trip, and we're in Doolin, and some guy sat down to play the guitar, and he was wanting to sing a song, and he kept coughing. He's like, "Sorry, I got a little bit of a rasp in my throat," and he kept coughing, and I'm just like, "It's that guy. That's the guy that gave it to me." So anyway,
Well, that's just
lady from Detroit, or lady from Memphis, you're the one that gave me my cough. So anyway, so tonight we're going to be the Acolyte wrapped up last night, and we've got nothing but unicorns and rainbows to talk about. Uh, no, I mean, like I said, we're going to be talking about the last two episodes because we didn't talk about episode 7. We recorded right before that was launched. Then we watched episode 8 last night. And we're going to talk about how we kind of feel about it because we are in our feelings a little bit, I think. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I, it, I think it just, there are a lot of things that it just could have been better. I saw something today. It's like, is it as bad as everybody made it out to be initially? No, was not anywhere near that. Was it as, did we get everything we were promised? Not necessarily that either. And did I like the decisions that they made in some places? Like, no, I didn't. But that being said, I think there are some really cool things. And there was some really cool, real Star Wars type stuff that happened, especially in this last episode. But we'll talk all about that. Because we've got ideas all over the place. This is not going to be, everything is awesome. It's not going to be that way. And because I do think I see, I don't know, do you guys, when you're looking around on the social medias and stuff like that, there's a lot of that this was like,
mm,
yes, it was like a grand slam home run. I'm just like, was it? Or was there a lot of errors that got the person around the bases?
now. I think what I've seen from a little I've seen in the last 24 hours since the finale dropped is just simply there's been some people who really loved it, connected with them, and they, in some ways, much of as we were giving praise to Leslie Headland for telling everybody everything's on the screen. I'm not holding cards here. I'm not keeping secrets. You can make figure this out, and we did figure out a whole bunch of what was going to happen. We kind of knew what was going to be, so they were happy with that. What I find interesting is there is still, I mean, there is still a pretty strong current of people saying no, it wasn't that it was uneven, that okay, some stuff that they liked didn't come to pass, or that some characters that they enjoyed didn't make it out, and they they're kind of not happy with some of the dynamics at the end. So we'll get all into it, but yeah, it's interesting. You do see a few people who are very, very happy with how everything turned out, and there's some people who are like kind of like I like some parts, I like some, and of course you always have the corner of the internet where everything is crap and everything because it's not Scottish. So
I've got issues. The show's got issues. and I have issues with those issues. But what I will say in its favor is that I think a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of people are interested in a lot of the sort of the theories are still present there. Like we can all speculate on, who that one guy was, um, and where all this might still be headed if they get a season two or even more beyond that. And that's all very much in question at this stage of things. So um,
Well,
it
so far,
it's it's discussion provoking, and I think like that is sort of inherently kind of cool. That's kind of a
Well,
good thing.
so let me share this real quick. If I can find it real quick. This is where I had to start kind of rethinking um, how I feel about it because, well, Daniel Jose Older, who is a, a writer, New Orleans writer, and he's one of the High Republic writers, one of the High Republic writers. So and yes, he gets a paycheck from Lucasfilm, get it, but he said that was astonishingly fantastic, and I went in extremely high expectations. What a finale! I'm blown away. The Acolyte, they did it. So it's interesting. I mean, so when I see that, then I wonder, okay, what did I miss? You know, and when I see, but and it's also when I see some who've been really critical, and then they talk about how some things hit for them in this last episode, then it made me start to think, okay, so what did I miss? Now, the ones who have been just glowing the entire way, it's just, then I don't know, I kind of, and they're glowing about the finale. I was like, oh, that's not surprising. But yeah, so anyway, we'll talk about all those things. Dave hasn't expressed to us what his issues are. We just had kind of vague conversations last night on our private thread, but but it's good. I mean, these are. I mean, we got to talk about these things. And I was wondering, what is it? We always talk about don't go in with expectations, but what were our expectations? Because that we have some. So anyway, but let's do some trivia first. Let's have some fun, and to start off with, and this whole conversation will be fun anyway. It's all great. Oh, come on. All right, Fredo, you owe me one.
hmm,
Who says that's two you owe me, Junior? Who says that's two you owe me, Junior?
would that be presidential candidate, president-elect Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, aka Han Solo?
You left out Red Hulk, right?
This is deadly not Red Hulk, but
So
yes, Han Solo.
I'm not even going to look in the back of that because it is absolutely true. Oh, all right. I think we might have had this one before, Dave. So I'm going to make sure you get the name right. What Gungan gives Jar Jar Binks a ride during the final battle on Naboo? What Gungan gives Jar Jar Binks a ride during his final battle on Naboo?
What's funny is like you said, you got to get the name right because there's two, and I
Here's
conflate them all the time.
well, here's
Uh,
here's the clue. It's not the
yeah,
Wookiee.
yeah. I think it's Captain Tarfels,
No,
plural.
you're thinking the Wookiee.
Oh, jeez. Oh well.
No, try
Um,
again. I'm getting it's
is it Tarfel then?
no, it's Tarpals with a
Oh,
P.
Tarpol. Okay.
Captain
They're just so
Tarpals.
close.
Yeah,
It's just I can't keep them straight.
Tarful is the Wookiee.
the Wookiee leader, yeah.
I thought I thought it was one of them was plural. That was how I always
Well,
differentiated.
that
But
was
there's also
Captain.
a different consonant in there too. So
Well, it was Tarful and Chewbacca, right? Yeah, and Tarpals,
and
yeah,
then
is
Tarpoles,
plural
right?
with a P. Um, oh man, who slays the Acklay in the Geonosian arena? Who slays the Acklay in the Geonosian arena? That would be our Lord and Savior Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, it would be. All right. Were those? No, it was two prequel, one Empire. All right. All right, should we dig into it? Before we get to the finale, though, we have to talk about episode 7 of The Acolyte, which was all flashbacks all the time. We knew that was kind of coming. Um, there were cool things in that episode, but let me ask you: did we need a full, whatever it is, 38 minutes of that flashback? It seems to me that they didn't give us really a whole lot to further things. Um, we kind of knew that. I don't know. It just seemed like we leaned in too much on the flashback from a different camera angle, and it didn't give us the stuff we're missing, like what I saw Screen Crush talk about, like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. You know, when they did the time turner thing, that gave us more information of what happened. This didn't seem to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it. If I'm honest, I thought we were gonna get at least a different um, flashback episode from May's point of view, and then get the one that we got. I'm surprised that we didn't, because because they had made so much of the idea of using Rashomon and putting Rashomon style story into Star Wars. The fact that we only got two episodes, one from Moshe's point of view, and then the big reveal that showed the more quote unquote objective point of view of the story, or I guess the omnipresent or omniscient audience point of view. I didn't mind it. I still think it didn't get. There's some aspects of it that didn't come really well executed. Like, if I'm honest, it's where the episode where Saul's character began to change from my favorite to, I don't know. I mean, which in some ways is by
I
design. You're supposed to go, but then it's almost like, okay, you want to rescue Osha from her coven. You feel she's in danger, but when Indara's asking you to voice why that is, all he can say is, "Well, I got a bad feeling about it." I'm like,
you know
I know you're a Jedi, but come on now,
that okay.
you gotta have a
So
bit more. You gotta a bit more to take someone's child away from their parent.
before we throw it to Dave, I mean, I'm just two things. Is that number one? I think that's one of the problems with this, and I need to watch the entire series once again before I say the entire series was A, B, C, D, or F. I want to watch it all again and see how things connect now that I'm not wondering from week to week. However, um, I had a big problem just figuring out everybody's motivations. And I really had a hard time figuring out Soul's motivation all the way up to the end. And May and Osha as well. It was not. It was just. It felt like we were vacillating from place to place and emotion to emotion, and not getting anywhere to say, "Oh, this is where we're going." Now, maybe on a second watch, this is going to be a little bit different. The other thing, however, I'm going to throw this one out there. This is another little criticism, and Dave's probably going to. I think this is going to what he's going to hit on with, especially this last episode, is when what's his butt, the Padawan
Torben.
Torben, when his whole deal was, I want to go home. That was like, really, that's the best we can get. For I was kind of expecting the Jedi to come in and do something, like I said, just kind of heinous, like like I've mentioned before, it's like Vietnam, when they shoot up what they think is an enemy hideout and ends up being a school full of kids, and then it's like, oh crud, this isn't good. We didn't mean to do that. This is awful. So because he wanted to go home and went to go get this girl, that's why he ended up taking his own life and being and putting himself in the corner for 10 years. That was just a little hard to eat at. So, and some of the Jedi like I said, some of their behaviors and kind of just bothered me. But anyway, so we're still sticking on 7 here though. But Dave, toss it to you. I mean, how did you feel about that flashback episode? Did it do what it needed to do?
Yeah, I mean, like watching it in real time, it was okay. Um, I have more issues with it now looking back at it after having seen episode 8, but like I'm kind of in agreement with you. Like maybe it didn't do quite enough. Um, and I guess this is where I mean, people's opinions can vary quite a bit, which is like you watch the events unfold and you can either interpret them as um, heinous, uh, semi justified, or somewhere in the middle between those two um, takes. And I fall more towards the semi justified realm on this thing. Like the everything that we've seen so far in Star Wars was like, yeah, witches are sort of bad news. They're bad,
Well, and you're right.
and
As you
Sith are
as you
bad, and there's a good side and there's a bad side, and the bad side does bad stuff, and
I will say I think that that episode did a good job. I agree with you, Fredo. What you said is that, looking at it through Soul's eyes, what he saw, I mean, he was, but he, it's like you're being painfully ignorant and jumping to conclusions because what he saw was a bunch of evil-looking witches about ready to push two girls down a hole, and after May said that, being an 8-year old girl saying that, mama says we need to be sacrificed, and you you see stuff that looks really spooky. Then the lead witch like turns into a ghost thing and starts like making, May disappear. It's like there are, it's, you know, it, he's going to react the way he's going to react, so I get that. But then, but he doesn't. I don't know why. When Indara asks him, it's like, why didn't he just say she turned into this spooky ghost monster and looked like she was going to take the girl? So what else am I supposed to do? He just said
that didn't get covered
no, it
later on
didn't.
either. In episode 8, that didn't get covered again. Like when he had the chance to tell Osha, when she's like, about to go, berserker on him, he calm berserker on him. But anyway, he's going at that point. He can say like, "Here's the context. Here's the context," and doesn't just like he doesn't. So
He doesn't, but I will say this slightly in his defense, only this. And then this came to me as we're listening to the senator go at Master Vanestro. The way that the Jedi present themselves are that they are these beacons of peace and light, and that they got all their McClunky handled. They know the right way every way because they're guided by the Force. And it's got to be a humbling experience. It's got to be a moment where you go, I screwed up. I inserted my own thumb into the scales because the Jedi Council, the High Council, had been informed of the situation there, and we're not sent there to deal with witches. They were sent there to investigate a planet that had been lifeless and now was teeming with life. They were suspecting some kind of miracle through the Force, and poor Torben, Padawan Torben, who's been stuck in Coruscant. It's like he went from the big city kid as to being dumped out in the boonies. But that's part of his issue. Is he's very much like most Padawans. He wants adventure and excitement. He hasn't matured enough to recognize that that's not what a Jedi does. Whereas Saul, who is at this point a Jedi Knight, should know better, should know not to interfere like the High Council told him to. But he pushed the scales into, no, I got to interfere because I feel the girls are in danger. Not realizing, wait a minute, they are in the hands of the people who love and care the most for them.
So
And instead of, but so that's why he can't really say, well, Mama was turning into a ghost and she had taken control of this Padawan's mind and well, I felt threatened. No, I'm supposed to be a Jedi. I'm supposed to be able to make the right decision every time, and I didn't.
so he uh like I said, we get this episode. Yes, it's mainly from May's point of view, and I say mainly because
Mhm.
there. So first of all, I get, and I you kind of suspected as much. It's like, yeah, she was burning her sister's book to be a spiteful little sibling, which that happens, and then it's like, oh crap, I just set the carpet on fire. I mean, my friend Ed and I did that, in his, basement. We burned a hole in his carpet. It's like it's, kids play with fire, Um, but but then, so we see all these things, and it adds more to the story. You always knew there was another side of the story. But the thing I found interesting was that when they get on the ship, and we're getting, you know, um, Indara's, you know, change, basically saying, no, she's the one that set the story to say it was a fire. No, you're not going to tell the Jedi Council the truth, and are you really going to take this girl's dream away from her? When after all that has happened, do we really think Endara said all that, or is Soul making some crap up? I think he's making some crap up.
It's an interesting element because we get that episode presented as being the objective, omniscient point of view, but it is very much Saul's statement to May, who is being held and being forced to listen to his story. He's
But
trapped. She
let's
can't go
remember
nowhere.
that fast forward, and Dara's the one that said, OSHA can't be taught anymore. And at the
Right.
beginning, she was saying she shouldn't be taught. So to have somewhere in the middle there where it's like, yeah, we got to make her a Jedi so she doesn't feel bad.
Right.
That just
Which
seemed odd.
but again, it goes to the overall theme of Saul thought he knew better. Saul thought, this child is in a place of danger, and I'm needing a Padawan, and I've made the Jedi to be something great. And because Osha is clearly struggling with being there. And we come to find out in the finale that they're not twins. We everybody gets right about Mother Anastasia's forehead emblem, that she's basically two halves of a whole. Osha is one half, May's the other half. Which season two, I'm wondering if we're going to get a moment where two halves become one whole again, but we'll see.
Well, we'll talk about all
Uh,
that in a little bit. I do want to toss
right.
it to Dave, though, about the Endara thing. Do you think that whole what happened on the ship afterwards, is that actually what happened, or is that Soul trying to justify some things and just making some stuff up?
I think that's what happened. I don't have any reason to believe that it isn't. Um, unless you see inconsistencies in his story elsewhere. Um, and I don't. So it's just not. It's not anywhere where my mind went. And it still doesn't. But with that, to me, he's maybe the most sympathetic character um, that we've had in this show. And I think that it's really tempting to look at him as being, sort of, oh, he got what was coming to him or whatever. But like, I don't.
See, and I don't. I'm going to say I don't feel that way. I think he is a
Right.
very sympathetic character. And what I love
Right.
about the character is that he's extremely flawed. And
Mm-hmm.
but what bothers me is the people who put him up on a pedestal immediately, when it's
Mm-hmm.
like he is probably, one of the most imperfect Jedi. Not to say he's a bad Jedi, but he showed his emotion, showed his faults, showed his frustration, showed his selfishness. And that was when we talk about motivation. That's the other thing, is that in that episode 7, he's like, so wants a Padawan, so wants to teach somebody, so, and it's like, okay, why? What is why? I mean, Kelnaka's not like flipping out wanting to have a Padawan. That's just something I would have liked to know more. It was like, okay, just I get that's his motivation, that he really wants a Padawan, but why doesn't he have one? Can we get one little snippet of, if you hadn't have done this, Soul, then you'd have a Padawan. I mean, we got a little bit of Endara in him when she just said, "That's why I have one and you don't," and it seemed like har har har. But I don't know. It just that was clunky to me. The motivations have been clunky.
He's the poster child for the Jedi here, right? And this is the big question for me coming out of this series, which is there are a few like did you enjoy this series? Why or why not? And there are certain factors I think that can determine for a person their ultimate enjoyment. And one of the big ones is how are the Jedi portrayed in this series? And um, and again, he's the poster child, and he's portrayed as flawed, and I don't have a problem with that. I think like ultimately, I tend to look at the Jedi um, the way that I look at people, which is that I think a lot of people, maybe the majority of people, are inherently good, but they're flawed and they make mistakes and they sometimes err on the side of wrong. And and I look at the Jedi that way, and I think if I came away from the series feeling that that was what was they were trying to achieve here, I think I would be pretty cool with it. But I I think they were going further than that, and I think they were portraying the Jedi as a little more problematic.
And this is kind of the difficulty with some of the shows. This is something we might discuss at a later point because we are thinking of the Jedi as a monolith, meaning the Jedi that we're seeing now are the same as the Jedi we see in the prequels, are the same as the Jedi that we see by sequel time. And the fact of the matter is, no, the Jedi we're seeing here at the end of the High Republic are 100 years ahead of what we're going to see in the prequels, when all their decisions and all their mistakes are going to get compounded by that council and those masters into the Clone Wars and whatnot. But there's a difficulty because we want to treat the Jedi as that they've always been these champions. I mean, the mythologized, idealized version that old Ben sold us in 1977. And the fact is, the more you start peeling the layers, the more you start to get to know them, the more you realize that they are living, breathing, sentient beings
Well, it's
capable of all the good and bad that anyone else can. Better trained, better able to deal some stuff, but when they fall harder than normal humans.
well, and it's sorry if I can bring this into the nowadays, because as you were talking about that, what I'm thinking about is that people who are in positions of power for a great length of time end up getting selfish and lazy,
And don't
and
want to give it up.
I mean we're seeing that with I mean you could say that that's why the Supreme Court needs term limits, because anybody who I mean when you have a position where and that's why the Senate the Republic is saying we need oversight of the Jedi is because they're just this autonomous thing that does what they want with this incredible power and no checks and balances. So that part of it is like a very real now conversation within our own government here. But I mean, I'll get away from that here for a second. So I have no problem with it, and in the grand timeline, we're talking 100 years is a drop in the bucket. So and that brings me to 2 points. That one, I have no problem, and I kind of guess that this is where you're going to start to see the Jedi seeing, oh, our power is starting to slip away because the Senate wants to oversee us. So that's why Vernestra is, chucking Soul
Lying.
under the bus and making up a story. And, there's a big cover up here. That's what governments do. That's what people in power do. It's never, Urban Meyer did not stop coaching football because he had a bad ticker. That it's you. There are convenient stories that come up to let people kind of keep their, you just not totally damage their reputation. So that makes total sense to me that that's going to happen. And so in now I'm going to get up to the other side. I said that 100 years is a drop in the bucket. That's where I failed going into this show, is that I felt like I went in with the expectations of we're going to see something that looks totally different from any Star Wars we've ever seen. It's a totally different era. It's totally blah 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 blah, and it didn't look totally different at all. And I think that so that has kind of thrown me off kilter, and that's my fault. That's my fault. I just that was my expectation going in. So let's maybe get okay. So the flashback, okay, it was fine, and by the way, there are some deep cuts in there that, and no pun intended, that would help. I mean, when you now find out that, I mean, I didn't know this. Maybe you guys did. That Wookiees can't use their claws, and when they use their claws, that's like it. They basically get banished. And so
No.
when Kelnaka was possessed by the witches, he used his claws to take out Torben. And so that, I mean, so he kind of, that makes sense why he would banish himself, you know. And then the other part of it too is like, obviously the witches were still in his brain, but that would make sense to me why he would put himself in timeout because of his, you know, nature as a Wookiee. You don't use your claws, and he did, and so it's like I first of all, it's un-Wookiee of me, and it's very un-Jedi of me. So I'm going to hide myself, from everybody else. My problem was I didn't think Torben needed to put himself in the, you know, Jedi timeout. But anyway, so we get into episode 8, and we're in the, we pick up with Osha in the helmet, and that whole thing with her and Chimera was really interesting. I mean, the fact that she basically possessed him, like Mother Anasea did. I don't know. And Chimera looked totally freaked out. I don't know. What'd you guys think about this whole deal?
Yeah, it was her, or it was May, or some combination, or some witch thing. Yeah, we're not meant to fully understand that. It's one of those things that they introduced, and they're like, you can guess at this for a while, but it was kind of fun. Um, it was the first. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm overstating it by saying the first real hint that like they're actually powerful.
Well, that
um,
that she is.
yeah. Um, at least where he's concerned, I think like he knew that May wasn't cutting it, and he wanted OSHA, and I think like this sort of reinforces that.
I mean, it was interesting because we started I mean, and this goes back to that whole idea of them being two halves of a whole. It's that at the start, May seemed the one driven, and it was OSHA who was lost. I mean, she was just basically working as a ship, a repair person on a ship, trading her skills for passage. And by the end, it's May who is willing to sacrifice, if you want to look at it that way, all her knowledge of her sister to, forego everything that she's known and just be left adrift like Osha was, because it's Osha the one who's carrying all that anger and all that grief and all the suffering that they've experienced. It's an interesting reversal. I don't necessarily know if they nailed it exactly the way I thought it was gonna, but that was the mission. It's interesting. That's why I keep thinking, should there be a season two? We will see them come back around to this idea. Don't think it's gonna stay that way for long, because the reality is it's that so far neither Ocean nor May seem to be able to live without the other for too long,
Well, it's.
even
I
though they did
mean,
for years.
yeah. Okay, so we'll just kind of bounce all over the place here and not move chronologically. But I mean, the
Eh,
the two halves of a whole. I mean, that's again, that was a bothersome thing to me. Where Soul said, "You are the same person," and they kind of mentioned it in episode 7 as well. But two people switched. One consciousness switched into two people. Okay, you've said that now twice. At least tell me a little bit how. At least a little bit. It's like, okay, we can guess that we used the Force to do this, but so those are types of things. It's like you told me 7 times that I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. Maybe just tell me 5 and tell me the rest of the story on 6. There's those decisions that bother me from a storytelling point of view. But the two halves, and so I was wondering throughout this whole episode with May and Osha, because it is like their motivations and their feelings are funneling from one to the other and constantly in this swirl where, like you said, Fredo, you have Osha who's the yin and May who's the yang, and then that just they just switch. It's like, yeah, May wanted to kill all the Jedi, and then when she has a chance to kill Soul, she throws the lightsaber away and says, "No, I want him to, you know, own up to his crimes. I want him to, talk to the Jedi Council." It's like, okay, that's an interesting switch after you've just wanted to kill everybody, and now all of a sudden you want him to stand trial. It's like, explain to me a little bit. I'm smart, but at least you can tell me in the narrative what is going on here. Osha, now looking back a little bit, I can see that where it's like she's, especially from, I think it was episode 5, when she said, she failed, that she, got kicked out of the Jedi because she couldn't control her anger. And so now looking back at that episode 8, I can see, okay, she just finally said, I'm not going to get rid of my anger. I'm just going to use it. But it seemed rather abrupt. Dave?
Not only that, it wasn't conveyed very well by the actress, and who was just very stoic looking, and so like it all very it just it was very strange and awkward. Um, what's the point of the virgin stuff? We've been talking about like, are they these two people emerged from the Force, and it's like, okay, this is all going to lead to Plagueis and Anakin, right? That's the point of that. But tell me why it matters for this story. And it was just like Saul would present it as it's an unimaginable source of power or something. Why would he care about power? Like,
It
what does he care about power? Like, he doesn't care. No,
sounds
like,
like the Continuum
what?
Transfunctioner. Its mystery
Yeah.
is only what is it from Dude Where's My Car? Its mystery is only anyway. Keep going.
What does it matter to him? What does it matter to the? I mean, like again, like the Jedi. I guess that's sort of the point of the series. In some respects, that the Jedi wield power and the Sith aren't allowed to,
Yeah, and
and
Soul
that
was
and
really ticked about it. He's like, your mother made you into two people with the Force. It's like, why are you so mad?
well, how does it matter?
You're right.
How does that matter? Because like it's make them Force sensitive, and you can tell the exact same story, right? Like just they're these two young girls, they're Force sensitive, and boom, off we go. And instead it's muddled and confusing, and yeah, we know you're trying to get in with Plagueis and Anakin, but like what's the point of it here?
Because that's really, I mean, even to the Jedi High Council, their decision was that okay, fine, whatever, leave him
Right.
be. No, as far as the wisest masters in the Jedi Order considered, once they were presented with this idea, they went, yeah, so who cares about power? Again, none of this story happens if Saul doesn't interject his own wishes into things and see a problem where there may not have been one by thinking, oh, I need to go rescue these two girls that are not asking to be rescued. Okay, maybe one's having cold feet about maybe inheriting the family business that's known to happen. You know,
So
maybe the
know,
other one's kind of a bit on the more angry side. Okay, who cares? Again, they're 8-year-old girls. If you've never handled lived with 8-year-old girls, you don't know how much anger they bottle. You know.
I have no problem, and we talked about this with Bad Batch. I have no problem
Mhm.
with these these Star Wars series doing what they
Connect.
can to explain things that kind of were left unexplained. Like you said, the whole Plagueis Anakin thing. The Bad Batch, it was all about helping Rise of Skywalker make a little bit more sense, and so is this one as well. I have no problem with, but I agree with you, Dave, that it's like at least tell a more coherent story, because
Uh,
and don't rely on everybody to be, geeky into the legends lore.
you can't be mad about people being lore demanded if your show is all about how this connects to the lore, meaning, oh, you're breaking lore, all the angry neckbeards complaining about lore breaking or whatever, and say, no, 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 we're not going to break lore. But then here's all this lore you must know in order for this to work. Again, we said this. You're right. We said this about Bad Batch. It's nice if they fit in stuff in here to kind of tease out and maybe make other Rise of Skywalker or other projects go down easier. That should never be the point. That should never be the mission. Your mission should be, we're going to tell the best dang story about these characters. If along the way we're able to put in a little extra like Marvel juice about how this connects to something else, cool. But do not feel the urge to say, we're using this to explain how we get to Anakin and the Phantom Menace. I mean, we got freaking Dark Plagueis cameo in here. That is him.
So okay, so and that's so I find myself like I'm like the kid in the classroom who just got in trouble for talking when Dave was talking in the corner, and I'm like, but teacher, Dave was talking as well. Why isn't he being sent to the principal's office? Because here's my thing, is that and it kind of goes in the question of where's the line between being derivative and setting up and explaining other aspects of Star Wars. Let me give you an example. There were lines in Episode 8 that were taken directly from the original trilogy. You know, I mean, you have Chimera saying it's the future you see. He even puts it in the same form as Yoda. You have strike him down and your journey to the will be complete. It's like so there's all these things that are, and I've seen people say this is great because it shows that that's the way the Sith train people. And okay, I get that. But then this is Aaron getting mad because Dave was talking in the corner as well. It's like some of these same people were lambasting The Last Jedi and the throne room scene with being totally derivative of the throne room scene in Return of the Jedi. So I wish we would just become consistent in our arguments. That's my thing. Is like I think it's mainly because people are so butthurt over what they how they portrayed Luke Skywalker that the Last Jedi couldn't do anything good. But I mean, there were so many things that were so just like I said taken. Not even just like, and it's not the, Britt and I were talking about this a little bit, and she brought, it's not the line of, I have a bad feeling about this. It's like the same scenario and the same, and then using the same words,
I'll see you in hell.
right?
There were a lot. There were a lot. And I think what it comes down to for me is like some of that comes is sort of like just taste, right? Like I would watch them be refer back to previous dialogue, and if the way that it is executed, specifically in that scene by those actors with the direction, and it seems to fit the story, then like I'm all in. I'm all about it. I'm happy. Happy Star Wars fan is happy. Um, but when the execution is a little bit off or wonky, um, maybe the delivery's not up to par, maybe does it fit the tone of the scene that they're going for, and it maybe that there's a tonal mismatch. If there's any sort of inkling of, oh, that's a little bit off, you get that uncanny valley effect
Yeah.
where you just are like, wait a minute, that's not right. That's
Now
that's just not right at all.
I do like the people who've analyzed that, that Chimera was basic, like especially in the episode where they were on the island and he had, he took Osha back to the island that first time. The parallels between the way he was behaving and the things he was doing to Yoda on Dagobah. I think that's interesting to me. Um,
Well,
but
and
like I
just
said, and I get the fact that maybe yes, okay, this is the Sith 101 playbook. It's like, how how to how to corrupt a person to become a Sith. You use these lines. I get that, but it was just kind of. And I will say this is one of my other big things that took me out of the moment was when they decided, okay, we're gonna go find Soul together, and he just kind of stopped and said, "So, do you want to be trained?" And she's like, "No." He's like, "All right." That whole scene seemed to me like, "Are you sure you don't want to go out on a date with me?" "No, I don't want to go out on a date with you." "All right. Well, I just had to ask another time." That was just kind of weird. Anyway, um, I will say though, what's good about this episode? The fight scenes were flippin' incredible.
Yes.
And
Blackwood.
I loved the fight between Osha and May, and the fact, yes, I know that they were whatever they did to make sure that Amanda Stenberg's face was on both characters. That was well done because I was actually kind of looking at that, and but I loved how the moves that they were using were the same moves against each other, and then how that paralleled they cut away to the lightsaber battle between Chimera and Soul. But yeah, I mean the lightsaber battle was off the hook.
Big time. And in particular, there were several moments between Soul and Cloudy McSith when they were just, like just doing things that we'd never seen before. Like pulling two sabers out of one hilt and uh, flinging the sabers at him, and then Saul like force pushing everything outward and catching him completely off guard with that. Um, him disabling the saber ultimately and getting the upper hand on him. Um, there's just a lot that was really really well done.
This whole series, the lightsaber stuff has been incredible. So
Yeah,
whatever they did, it was just awesome. Um, and then I do have to say that the coolest moment was when she was bleeding the kyber crystal. That
we've never
was
seen that on screen. Yeah,
no, that
right.
was pretty awesome. I remember when that said, I think, oh loud, I went, oh, she's bleeding a kyber crystal. It's so yeah, she just choked the dude to death, and yeah, then when she fires up the lightsaber, it's going from blue to red, and that was way cool. I thought that was visually, that was a good moment.
I like the visuals of the chase through the rings of the planet, um, like the Saturn rings.
All right, but we
Uh,
have to ask what the hell was Basil doing?
no one knows. Uh,
I saw somebody say that maybe he was thought that Soul was going to start shooting on May, and so he disabled the ship. Maybe Basil didn't trust Soul anyway. We thought that he was maybe tracking May and was suspicious of May, but maybe it was also suspicious. But that's another thing. It's like, just give me a little bit more than the, Otter Man, ripping wires out. Is there something that you can at least explain to me what's going on here? So keep
I
going
think
though.
the problem is when you lose the audience and they're confused about what they're seeing and they don't understand like visually what's going on. That's why I don't like those Transformers live action movies
Yes, I
because
agree.
all the robots look the same
Yes.
and you just see like an arm and a claw and you can't tell what's happening and like when this is the same thing. Obviously, it's not like a visual effect, but it's like the same effect on the audience. I don't know what's happening. Why would he do that? And and that was the thing that I just would keep coming back to over and over with this series. It's like, well, why would that person do that thing?
Or why was this decision made to
Yeah,
let them, make them do like Basil? I mean, we saw him kind of, sneaking on board a ship, kind of running around, maybe what he's doing, and then, okay, he sees maybe Saul targeting May's ship, and maybe he thinks, but again, we're not privy to his thought process because,
yeah,
in a way,
we don't
all
know.
he's been shown to be a cute, scent fueled tracking mechanism, you know, a nice plushy version of Darth Maul's, probe droids that he sends out to find the Jedi in Episode One. That's what he is. So the fact that
Yeah,
he has shown agency and has a thought about what's happening in front of him seems odd because it hasn't been established before. And this is again one of those issues that we may discuss down the line about this series. It's you have you can show, but you also sometimes have to tell. And it's nice when when people go, "This is why I meant. This is what I was doing. This is what I felt like." Even but it's got to corroborate. You can't just simply say, "Well, the cute furry animal being saw something. He might have thought this was going to happen." So
So
because the reaction is, "Hey, let me start pulling wires and we crash land."
yeah.
yeah. So I didn't like that aspect of it at all. It was confusing and befuddling. Again,
I mean,
emblematic of the series.
like
But
somebody said, it was, they needed a way to get May and Soul separated and then down on Brandok. So yeah, it was just clunky. I agree. Dave, keep going. Sorry.
uh, but I like the visual of the chase through the rings, right? Like that's something we hadn't seen before. That's cool. So give us something we've not seen before. That is the promise. They've been promising that. They've been promising, uh, giving us something we had never seen before, giving us a Sith-based story, and they promise um, giving us a mystery. And I'm not sure they succeeded all that well at those three things, right? Those are the things that like we were sort of told
You
to
know,
expect.
I will. Another thing that was now I'm going to be critical again is
Yeah.
you mentioned the way the Jedi are portrayed. The Jedi that I don't like I said I don't mind Vernestra being shady. I don't mind Soul being flawed. I don't mind some of these things. What I mind are especially after you get like in the first couple episodes where you have Yord and Jecki and who seem very competent and but then any other time that you get red shirt Jedi going on some mission, it's like Keystone Cops. It's like they don't know what they're doing. It seemed they seem scared when they were arresting May. They just seem, I don't know, that for some reason that just bothers me. It's like they seem like the freshman class.
And maybe this gets back to the issues that so many have with Torben. This is a Jedi Order who, by this point, they're past uh, the issues that they had in the High Republic period, because this is the end of the High Republic period. So they're not being trained to be warriors.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
okay, well, maybe let me put it this way: they're trained to do lightsaber skills well, which is why all the fights are amazing. But it seems like there's a lot of critical thinking that's not being taught at the Jedi
It's like
Academy.
Police Academy. Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. They're the Tackleberry and all the other
Huckleberry.
Jones. Yeah,
yeah, exactly of of uh, of the galaxy, and maybe this kind of begins to kind of lead us to see why by the time we get to the prequels they're completely blindsided to the idea that there could be a Sith. Hey, by the way, we got a solution for why Mundi never heard
right.
of the Sith. You know,
Except for I'm gonna throw a wrench in that. Yes, because you know Chimere says I can erase her memories so that she doesn't remember you or me, and he does the Doctor Strange turning of time. Um, so yeah,
Why?
So this is all well and good. You're right. It explains away how, you know, if it is only to be one season, because there are some other things. If this goes into season two, Vernestra knows that Chimere is around because you get that, they sense each other on Brandok, and she says he's alive. So she has an idea of what's going on. So now, if we have a season two, the Jedi are still going to be around. They're still going to be. She's going to be looking for Chimere. Maybe not know that it's Sith or anything like that, but she's got a good idea of what's going on. So it's like they. So yes, you're right, Fredo. If it is one season, then they've explained how Kiadi Mundi can't be mad at him. But if they go into a season two, then they're going to have to do that dance again. Now that's my thing, though. It's like I said, I would reserve judgment of how Ahsoka ended once I know that there's going to be a second season. And so I feel better about that ending because I know there's a second season coming. We don't know for sure if there's a second season of The Acolyte. So there's so many things that are just left. I mean, do you really throw Plagueis out there unless you know you're going to have a second season? Do you really have things go the way you had it go unless you know there's going to. That was just kind of daring. I mean, George Lucas had no idea he was going to get a sequel. So that's why there's a little bow wrapped around that present, and the only little thing that's out there is that Darth Vader got away. So if they let me have a sequel, I have an out.
Right.
But
Well,
if they don't, we got a great movie that everybody loves, and I made my movie, and now I'm going to go make Howard the Duck.
one of the more I wouldn't say damning comments, but one of the more illuminating comments about this series that I saw online was from Ben Hart, who we've had on the
Mm-hmm.
show and does the Star Wars Underworld podcast, and he talked about how he would be totally fine if they didn't do a season two. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I would probably be totally fine with that. Um, Ahsoka, I did not feel that way at all. I was passionate. They need to make a season two. I need that in my life. I don't feel that way about this one. Now, as far as the setup there at the end with the memory thing, why it doesn't make sense other than to get May with the Jedi, right? It's a plot device. Have the girls switch places again, and and why did Osha not want to bring her sister with her at the end there when she clearly could have? And
That's the thing. That was my other thing is that why not, even if you're, because I saw somebody say is, the Sith ship only, well, his ship only seats two because of the whole rule of two thing, which I think maybe you're making a stretch, but it's like cram
say
somebody in
that
there
then.
because you know, if you got one Death Star, why not have two? It's I don't understand why they had to be separated. That was the other thing, is then and why all of a sudden May's going, go and be what you meant to, what you wanted to be. It's like that
The
whole.
people aren't doing what makes sense for them, the
Yeah.
characters, and then the way they're written, right? So give the actors a break on this because this is how these things, all of this is scripted this way. um but like they don't perform the way that you would think that they would want to, like um Darth Thirst Trap, you would think would want two apprentices, right? Like he could have two. Like that was what we talked about, that the meaning of that dialogue, right? The power of two. I want the power of two. And like now, no, like he's just gonna say, yeah, no, I don't want May. I just want Osha. That's all.
Or even just bring the two. I mean, you've introduced the idea, thanks to Saul, that they are halves, that they're halves of a whole. Well, if you've seen that Osha's powerful and May is powerful, and you're someone who is a Sith, acolyte or whatever, you're somebody who's devoted to the dark side. What's better than, okay, let's figure out a way to bring you together to complete that ceremony so that the two of you are even more powerful. Then I have one of the most powerful force users in the galaxy as my apprentice. Because that's normally what Sith kind of like to go for. It's let's get somebody who's stronger so that
And
our
I
power grows and we're more. But all that setup, all that dynamic got introduced, and that's kind of what makes me think that we're going to get a season two, because they've done all this groundwork but left it there
well,
for whatever.
and that's the thing. That's another thing that just kind of bothers me. It's like it's cool that we see what we're all assuming is Plagueis. It looks exactly like they have him drawn in the legend book and whatever. It, if I was a betting man, I would put a bunch of money down that that's Plagueis. But then there's many questions here. Is like, does Chimere know that he's there? Is Plagueis a master, or is he still an apprentice to the other dude? And
Tenebris.
is Chimere his, like, the guy he's going to try to get? But then we know Palpatine becomes that guy who ends up taking it. There's just so many. It's like, so it's cool that you put it out there, but it just makes the story messy. I mean, we were all kind of already there that, all right, this is going to lead to Plagueis and how he learned how to, create life using the midichlorians. But that could have been if you're going to get, you don't need it in this, you don't need to see him in this season. That way, if you're getting season 2, then that would be the place to introduce him, you know, so he's figuring out who this Osha person is. So I don't know.
I'll defend that particular decision because like there's so much teasing in this show where we're gonna give you the thing. No, we're not gonna give you the thing. We're gonna tell you about your past. We're not gonna tell you about your past. And it's just like so much of that to the point where like I'm like, get
Get
over
on
it.
with it.
Yeah, just get on
Get
with it.
on with it. Get
Uh,
on with it.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Oh, I am enjoying this scene.
Get on with it.
um,
I mean,
and
even the final shot of this season was a tease
yes,
to next
no,
season.
yeah, no, and like again, the premise of the show is a tease. It's gonna be about the Sith. No, not really until you get to the very end, and now, hey, yeah, now it's gonna be about the Sith, guys. Just wait until next season. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They'll figure out a way to not give it to you again. So I will defend the decision to like show us like Plagueis, but even that's a tease, right? Like
So
we're gonna get Plagueis later or whoever that is, right?
here is another one that this is what I'm truly worried about and truly worked up about. What is Vernestra saying to Yoda?
Oh, I don't know, man.
I mean, that really does bother, because if there is a Jedi, I mean, Yoda is flawed as well. But, Yoda isn't really a liar. And so if it comes to find out, if Vernestra is going in and confessing everything that she found out, and Yoda ends up being this, sweeping it under the rug type of that. So why I think
No.
while I think that I don't know, because we're assuming that when Vernestra was talking to somebody on the radio, that she was trying to set up a meeting with Yoda. What is she saying? So that bothers me a little bit to think about that one.
Hasn't happened yet, so I don't even have to like worry about it. But like, yeah, I'm a big no on that. Um, and again, people's opinions vary quite a bit on the portrayal of Luke in the sequel trilogy, but I think like a lot of people came to feel that it was in character. that would be his actions in that movie would be things that he would do.
Mhm.
I didn't think people took issue with him hiding out on the island in the first place, but I'm like, well, then that your issue's not with Last Jedi. Your issue's with
Now,
um,
actually,
the previous movie.
if I may, I think when I said, "What do you think she's saying?" I did like. I think it was New Rock Stars. They said what they think that her conversation with Yoda is about the it's going to be she, when they talk about her being in hyperspace and she sees things, she gets visions, even though they didn't specifically, they mainly talked about her getting seasick, but she's like, no, I get visions. They're speculating, what if she had a vision of basically Anakin, or basically the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force? And is she presenting that to Yoda because Soul found this vergence where two people were created. You know what I mean?
And
It's like, so is this where that prophecy comes from? So I do like the idea that maybe they're doing some things to set up some things to make Phantom Menace and this prequel trilogy make a little bit more sense and make the sequel trilogy make a little bit more sense. But it's like just
I'll,
kind of a mess. Anyway,
now I was gonna say, we forget that in episode one, the person that introduces the concept of the rule of two is Yoda.
yeah,
How does he come to know that? Maybe this is where he gets involved and gets to know. Because as far as the Jedi are concerned, we go back to this idea: Sith don't exist, Sith haven't existed in over a millennia. But he also knows by episode one, when they're talking at Qui-Gon's funeral, Yoda is telling him there always two there are, a master and an apprentice, not more, no less. And that's, so he knows that. He's aware of that little tidbit of knowledge. Where did he get that from?
yeah.
Is this what potentially we're gonna learn in season two? How Yoda comes to find out about Darth Bane, the rule of two, the idea of uh, the Sith still being somewhere kicking, maybe in the edges of the galaxy, possibly. Again, I don't want these shows. None of the Disney Plus shows, none of the media Star Wars is making should exist to explain something that came already. It should be for its own good, tell its own story, be its own quality, good or bad, whatever. But it shouldn't exist to be, well, now we're telling you the backstory of Han Solo's blaster. That shouldn't exist. It's nice if it comes, but it shouldn't exist.
So we're over the hour mark. We've talked around in circles a bunch. I'm still planning on doing a binge watch of this because I want to see
Me
them
too.
close together. Do you think we will get a season two? If you had to put $20 down, are we getting season two? Dave?
No,
I've got the hiccups,
Yes.
Fredo. You have to answer. So
Well, yeah, I'm just waiting for a moment for you to stop talking.
it's not
So,
going to
no,
happen for the rest of the show now because this has been going on all day. So anyway,
okay, so in answer to your question, yes, I do think we'll get a season two. Uh, as a matter of fact, everything that Disney Plus posted was season finale. It didn't say finale. It didn't say series finale. It just said finale. It was season finale. So everything tells us there's every expectation that we will get more Acolyte. Now, when that might be, that's another open to debate question. But I do think we are going to get a season two, at least one more season of the Acolyte to try to redeem some of the story threads left dangling, trying to close a nice neat bow. Because I mean, Andor's going to get only two seasons. Acolyte can get two seasons and be done. But yeah. So if my $20 go in the yes side of the table.
it is kind of neat that it seems like because of all the review bombing that was happening early on, the approval has been fairly high.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it's been a show that's been. What was interesting is at the start there was such a negative reaction that it's almost like all now it feels like the positivity is trying to be overwhelming. And whereas I don't think any of us think that it was as awful as the people at the start said it was. I don't think. necessarily were on the boat of the people who think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread or since episode 3 at least or whatever. You put it whatever you want to put. So we think it's a good show with some flaws that could improve. So I do think it's interesting that it's found a very good crowd of supporters and defenders, which that's the thing. It's all Star Wars. Some people are gonna love it. Some people are not gonna love it. That's fine.
Fredo, actually, I think it was Aaron. You asked us in the chat,
Mhm.
what makes a good ending? Like, well, how do you define sticking the ending? We've used that term a few times, and I
Mhm.
think like that's a question that I might leave everyone here with as we go into next week. And next week, when we do our final analysis of the show, we should probably all try to revisit that. Um, I'm not sure I would call this them sticking the landing. I wouldn't call this a great ending. Um, but I would get into the why of that next week.
Yeah.
So,
I, yeah, that's why I'm still kind of leery of doing any grand kind of
mhm.
overarching. I think this is Ahsoka or Mandalorian were great shows to watch on a weekly basis. I think this one more than any, even more so than say Andor,
Well, I
are
would,
gonna benefit from a binge of just sit down, go through, get the whole
and
story, and then
that's
see what it tells.
it's exactly what I want to do. And it's the thing is like I didn't feel like at the end of Empire, you feel fulfilled. It's not a happy ending, but you feel fulfilled. I didn't feel. Pardon me. I did not feel like resolved or okay. I'm resolved with the fact that Osha is totally turned to the dark side. That's fine. But there's so many other things that just are like kind of out there. But maybe it's because I've only watched each episode like about once. So I'll do that again. And with that, I cannot say another word without hiccuping. So we're just going to any final thoughts very quickly. You guys want to say to anybody out there?
I mean, just that, just right quick. It's interesting that we got the final heroic sunset moment, but it's for the bad guys. Isn't that a nice twist? Like at the end, like you get the nice romantic heroic moment, but you're like,
I
this,
still have the romance issue. Still have a romance
yeah,
issue.
I know.
He didn't need to
Again,
hold
it's
hands. Anyway,
You'll have to get
yeah.
that. You'll have to get that term from Brittany, Aaron, that you were telling us about in fiction that she was telling you about.
yes, I
Like,
will. I'll write it down.
because yeah, because that's exactly what we're getting here. It's just like people that you really shouldn't root for getting together and
Mhm.
having success, and I don't know. I don't know
But
how I feel about.
it's crazy that they gave it to them. I mean, again,
Uh,
it's I thought back to there's the old quote from Robert Heinlein about your enemy is never a villain in their own eyes, and this is an example of that. Hey, we're gonna train together. We're gonna use the force. We're gonna harness the power, and we're going to overthrow the galaxy. Let's go, kids.
Well, with that, I've got gonna hiccup, and we will say who dat.
who dat?
Who that?
And thanks for putting up with our ranting and hiccuping and everything. And everybody have a great week.
McConkey.